Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning into today's webinar. With us today is SCR's General Counsel, Byron King. Byron is going to walk you through what to do and what not to do when using the Real Estate Offer Rejection Form, SCR 314, and Solicitation of New Offer Form, SCR 312. You'll learn why and how to properly use these forms, how to properly counteroffer and accept an offer, why not responding to an offer can land you in hot water, what to do when you get multiple offers, and why NAR recently looked into adopting similar requirements for the MLS rules. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Byron and we can get started.
Thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon, Realtors. This is Byron King here. It's November 15th, 2018, broadcasting from the Columbia, South Carolina SCR member office. And you can see here I'm on the left, and that's the legal hotline number 803-772-5206. If you have any questions after this webinar, or if you're watching this webinar on our SCR YouTube channel. Austin Smallwood's our other attorney. He's there on the right. He's manning the hotline right now if you want to give him a call. And so this is our legal hotline page. This is on the screaltors.org legal page. It's got our contact information. We've got legal FAQs on this page, earnest money dispute information, office policies, do not call policies, lead paint hazard issues, and realtor safety issues. You could click there. And then the first thing I wanted to let you guys know, you've got a deadline of December 31st, 2018 to get your 2.5 hours of realtor ethics education. Some of you went to some of our, we took the van to your local board during 2018 to give these classes. You can take them online, you can take them in person. Some are free, some count for CE. But you've got to get this ethics done. All realtors must complete 2.5 hours of ethics by December 31st, 2018. And so that's what this page is to remind you of. All right, and then segueing from that, the National Association of Realtors in Boston just had their annual conference. Board of Directors approved a couple things that relate to Form 314. SCR has a Form 314, which is the LLR, Real Estate Offer Rejection Form. This is basically to solve the problem. You've probably all been in these two shoes. Either you're the buyer rep, and you're not sure your offer ever got submitted to the seller, or you're the listing agent and the buyer or the buyer rep doesn't believe you submitted your offer and they want something in writing. You can now send the real estate offer rejection form to them when the seller rejects their offer. That's SCR Form 314. So SCR 314, real estate offer rejection form, is the government LLR form based on the law. The license law was updated in 2017 to require this. So you're required under license law to provide this form. Basically, anytime the seller does not accept or counteroffer the buyer's offer. So listing agents, you're always going to do something. I'll say it 3 times. Listing agents, you will always do something. Listing agents, you will always do something. Either send the accepted contract back to the buyer side, or send the offer rejection form, or send a counteroffer form back to the buyer. So you're trying to raise the price. So you will always do something. Listing agents will always do something. Listing agents will never do nothing. So you're always going to do something. Listing agents will never do nothing. So you're going to be sending basically 3 types of paper back to the buyer side once the buyer submitted an offer. You're going to send, basically probably most likely a counter offer, because your seller is probably going to be trying to get better terms and a higher price. So most often it's probably going to be a counter offer. Are you going to send the offer rejection form? The seller has rejected their offer. Or you got a deal, you're going to send the accepted contract back. So listing agents will always do something. NAR finally caught up to South Carolina in 2019. The Code of Ethics will actually require this under Article 1, Standard of Practice 1.7. And this is from the Texas Association, but you can see here, I'm highlighting it here now. It basically says under the Code of Ethics in 2019, under Standard Practice 1-7 will be updated. That was approved by the Board of Directors in Boston, the NAR Board of Directors, a few weeks ago. Standard Practice 1.7 is updated in response to frustrations voiced by brokers in busy markets who don't know if their offers are actually presented to the sellers. This standard now requires that if a buyer's broker asks whether the offer was submitted, A listing broker or agent must provide an affirmative written response unless the seller provided a written waiver of the broker's obligation to present certain offers. So under license law, it says you'll basically present all offers. Obviously, there's some extreme circumstances where that might not occur, but in general, that's a good rule to follow. And so the Code of Ethics is catching up to South Carolina license law. And South Carolina has had this offer rejection form, SCR 314, since January of 2017. So we're kind of ahead of the wave. So you'll be covered under the Code of Ethics under the using the 314, so you'll be good to go. The other thing, the board of directors, the National Association of Realtors Board of Directors in Boston annual conference a few weeks ago approved, basically putting into MLS policy statement, basically similar language to the standard practice 1-7 for 2019, similar to South Carolina license law that says you got to give the offer rejection form. And then the SCR 314 itself, offer rejection form. I'll read it here. This is from the NAR website. The board, meaning the board of directors for NAR, amended MLS policy statement 7.73 regarding the rights of cooperating brokers in the presentation of offers. The policy reinforces cooperation and brings the MLS policy in line with the Code of Ethics. Under the rule, listing brokers will be required to provide a written affirmation or notification to cooperating brokers on the disposition of their offer. The requirement gives associations the ability to impose disciplinary action against a listing broker who fails to present either written confirmation the offer was presented or evidence that the seller waived the obligation to have the offer presented. So in general, you're always going to present all offers. So you've got something really extreme. Somebody's, say a stalker is just trying to harass the seller and sending an offer a day just to harass the seller. The seller could obviously direct you not to submit those offers. But in general, you're going to submit all offers to the seller. And when you do, you're always going to do something. Or listing agents will always do something. So you're either going to send probably a counter offer with a higher price and better terms back to the buyer's side, or you're going to send the offer rejection form, the seller rejected the offer. Or if you're lucky, you don't even have to negotiate anymore. The seller's accepted the offer and you're sending the accepted contract back. So listing agents will always do something every time the buyer side sends an offer. You're going to present the offer to the seller. Listing agent will present the offer to the seller. And then you'll either send the accepted contract back or the counter offer for higher price, better terms, or you're going to send this 314 offer rejection. So you will never, listing agents will never do nothing, never do nothing, never do nothing. All right, and then we talked about the legal hotline. These are the FAQs. You can go through there and read those. You can actually search these FAQs for, say you want to search for 314. Here's the search, brings up a lot of articles on 314, so you can do that. So you want to look up form 312, which is the multiple offer form we're going to talk about again today. For multiple offers, you can search the legal FAQs, lots of articles show up. And here's the search for multiple offers. You can see it brings up lots and lots of articles for you to read. You can go on YouTube and read about multiple offers. You can go to nar.realtor and read about multiple offers to your heart's desire. So let's talk about the forms. This is our scrrealtors.org forms page. If you're interested in seeing what kind of forms are coming up, Mike Christ, our webmasters, put a click here to view drafts of our upcoming forms and give us feedback. So you can actually click this. You can see all sorts of rough drafts that are out there. Austin's the staff liaison of the Forms Committee. They'll be working on these forms for 2018, 2019. You can actually click on these rough drafts, read them. You can send us comments. Hey, I like the form. I don't like it. Hey, I want you to change something. We've got animal policy for pet service animals, guide dogs. We've got that up. We've got a self-dealing disclosure. We've got lots of photograph copyright issues, DHEC water supply waste inspection permission form, conditional release from listing agreement, conditional release from buyer agency, and notice forms. Lots of stuff for you to give us feedback. So realtors that say you don't like the forms, we listen to you. That's how we update the forms. All right, and then getting into form 314. This is form 314, the real estate offer rejection form. It's got an SCR number. It's on our website. It's in your zip forms. If you use something else like .loop, you can get in touch. Brokers can get in touch with us to get a licensing agreement to upload those forms into other alternative vendors, and obviously keep those updated. But this is basically a government form that we've incorporated into our library. So can see it's labeled at the top. It's got the LLR-SC.gov logo. That's the government. It says what it is, real estate offer rejection form. It's got their address there, their website. And then they kind of take an excerpt from license law that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but we'll just read it right here. So pursuant to South Carolina Real Estate License Law and South Carolina Code of Laws, Section 40-57-135, I-5, which is your license law, this offer rejection form is promulgated by the South Carolina Real Estate Commission for use when a real estate purchase offer is rejected without a counteroffer. A signed copy of this form is to be provided by the buyer. It's a very simple form. It's one page. Written offer from, fill in the blank, say I'm the buyer, Byron King, buyer, in the amount of $1 million for the property located at 3780 Fernandina Road, Columbia, South Carolina 29210. Was presented to the seller on November 15th, 2018 at 12:12 p.m. The offer has been rejected by the seller without a counteroffer. So if you're sending a counteroffer, you don't need this form. You just send the 506, 507 back to the buyer side, probably asking for a higher price, better terms. But if the seller just rejects it out of hand, which he might be doing, the seller, she may be doing that if they're setting up for multiple offers that we're going to talk about once we get through this form. And then you sign it. And brokerage firm, basically that's the brokerage firm. You would write in the name of the brokerage firm. That's basically the listing brokerage firm. And then somebody's going to sign it, basically. That's who they're going to try to go after if somebody tells a false statement on here. So if you don't present the offer to the seller, and they write you up for it, and the investigator has this form where you sign it saying you presented it to the seller, and the seller never saw the offer, you're going to be even in bigger, more hot water with LLR. So the broker could sign it, the licensee could sign it, you're going to date it. What comes up a lot of times on this form are a couple of issues. So we had a question before it started. Jenny told me one question from a member was asking, hey, I saw a form that used to have the seller signature on here. It used to be down here where my cursor is. We had gotten permission from staff at LLR to add the seller signature on here because obviously you get the seller signature on here. Remember, the problem is buyer side reps, buyers don't believe their offer got submitted. So if you don't trust the listing agent, you might not trust a form signed by the listing agent. So by having the seller sign, it made the buyer rep and the buyer a little bit more comfortable that the seller actually saw their offer because the seller would actually sign the rejection form. And like I said, we had permission from LLR staff to add that. It was a line down here under the little gray box and said seller signature and date, kind of similar to this listing broker, listing agent signature line. But the real estate commissioner said, look, the way we design forms is all we do is go by the license law. And license law just says that the listing brokerage is going to sign the form. So we don't go beyond the law when we're drafting the forms. We control the forms. We do not give you permission to add the seller signature on the form. So you may have seen a form. The old 314 had a seller signature. The real estate commission, they basically have taken the position, all we do is create the form exactly what license law says. We don't go one step further than that. So that's our form. We do not give SCR permission to put a seller line on there. So remove that line, and obviously we took the line off. But there's nothing preventing you from drawing a line down here, or if you're familiar with how to manipulate zip forms to get the seller to sign down here, there's nothing preventing the brokerage from adding that line. We just can't have it in our library. So if you wanted to take this form, put a seller signature line on here, add it to your forms library under your brokerage library, you could do so. You could have your brokerage policy, tell all your associated licensees, hey, we always want the seller to sign this. Because it kind of kills two birds in one stone, right? We talked about it, gives the buyer rep and the buyer a warm fuzzy that the seller saw it. The other thing it does is keeps the seller from changing his story. So the seller says, I reject this, you sign it, send it to the other side, and then the seller changes his mind, or they forget they told you they rejected it, or they just want to cause problems for you. They change their mind and say that they never saw the offer, basically lying. You could find yourself having an uphill battle to fight to defend yourself. So the question, the other question, Jenny just handed me another question, sorry about that. It was basically, even though the law basically sounds like you could read the law where this goes back and forth every time somebody rejects an offer, the real estate commission has said, hey, we're going to interpret the law in a certain way. This is only for the seller getting an offer from a buyer. So you don't have to worry if you're on the buyer side. You never have to worry about creating one of these 314s. So this is only for listing agents, listing agents, listing agents, listing agents. So 314, listing agents always do something. Listing agents never do nothing. So listing agents always present the offer to the seller. Listing agents then send back, most likely a counteroffer for a higher price and better terms, or the offer rejection form 314 the listing agent sends back to the buyer side. Or, hey, the deal worked, we're going to sign it. Then the seller signs the contract and the listing agent sends the accepted offer back to the buyers, and you're on the deal going to closing. The other thing that comes up on the hotline with this form is there are some brokers that list REO properties. So if you don't do REOs, foreclosures that are being sold by the banks, you may not be familiar, but you probably want to listen to this because at some point you're probably going to deal with these. So these are large lenders. Most of the lenders are gigantic lenders with thousands of REO properties, of foreclosed properties across the United States. This obviously was a bigger problem during the recession, but there's still large thousands and thousands of properties being managed by REO officers in a distant bureaucratic corporate setting, either the bank itself or the REO servicer, which is a giant corporation. Each of these individuals are working 300 to 500 houses a month. So they're just inundated with sheer numbers. And to manage that, they use internet portals for offers. So it's what I say on the hotline is, you kind of have to do it the bank's way or you hit the highway. It's kind of the golden rule. The bank has the gold, so they make the rules. So the good thing about REOs is maybe there's a discount on them. The bad thing is they're not suitable for all buyers because banks a lot of times have their own way of doing things. They may not make repairs, be amenable as so many sellers might be in a regular cookie cutter residential resale. But the REO, there is no carve out of license law for REO. So here's what I say on the hotline, because a lot of times I'll get called from buyer reps who are upset they've got to enter the information into an internet portal to send it to the REO servicer, the seller. And remember, these REO servicers are handling hundreds and hundreds of these deals a month. So they have to rely on technology to handle the sheer volume of REO sales that they're doing. They're far away. They don't know your market. They don't know the pricing. They're nervous about getting the adequate price for the REO foreclosed property. So for listing agents, so I get that spiel when the buyer agent calls the hotline. They're upset, saying, "Hey, license law says you have to submit all offers to the seller. We do not want to use that internet portal. License law says listing agents shall submit all offers to the seller." I said, "Well, you're right in a sense, but you could win the battle, lose the war. Here's why. The banks are not going to accept an offer that's not sent via their requirements, basically the internet portal. So if you refuse to put it under the internet portal, you buyer rep may be violating the code of ethics where you're supposed to look out for the best interest of your client under Article 1. So yeah, you're correct. License law says present all offers, but these banks make the rules. If their property, they're requiring you to submit it through an internet portal. So keep that in mind. For listing agents, when I get the call on the hotline, I say, look, kind of the same talk. The REO seller, the banks, they make the rules how they want to sell. I understand if it doesn't go through the portal, the chances of the seller, the REO seller or the REO servicer or the bank accepting an offer is almost zero. But in case that buyer rep files a complaint against you with the real estate commission, here's what I recommend. You take their offer, and you put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, address it to the REO servicer corporation, wherever they are, California, New York, whatever they are, far away. Put the offer in there and mail it to them, and have a witness when you drop it in the mailbox that you sent the offer to the seller. If you've got an email or a fax number, you can do that. Granted, that REO seller, REO servicer, bank is most likely just going to throw that letter or fax or email into the trash, and it's not going to get anywhere. That will be your defense if someone files against you at the real estate commission. And you probably want to send a listing agent, you probably want to send a 314 to the buyer rep if their offer is not accepted, so that you're protected against any kind of filing at the Real Estate Commission. So REO, sellers, servicer, banks are not carved out of license law. So you got to submit all, listing agents always have to do stuff, right? So listing agents have to submit all offers to the seller, hopefully by the internet portal for REO properties. But as a backup, put a stamp on it, mail it to the REO, servicer, seller, bank, and then, or fax or email if you got it. A lot of times the listing agents don't have a fax or an email to send that to. So that's why I say get the physical address for the REO servicer in California, New York, wherever they're, Texas, wherever they're located. Send that to them. So listing agents always have to submit all offers. Listing agents always have to respond in one of three ways. Listing agents never do nothing. Listing agents always do something. So listing agents have to send back most likely a counteroffer with a higher price and better terms, or this offer rejection form 314, or 312 if they're sitting at multiple offers in a more traditional resale, residential resale. Or, you know, you got lucky. The seller accepted the offer, the seller signed the contract, you send that back to the buyer, we got a deal, we're moving to closing. All right, and then if you ever want to look at license law, this is where I go, scstatehouse.gov. You can look up the bills if you're interested in legislative committees. 2019, Drew Street's the new president. The committee invitations will probably going out shortly. Legislative committee will be meeting in Columbia tomorrow. New leadership team in place for 2019, and SCR will be doing leadership training moving into 2019, as well as the Capitol Conference and some other events coming up quickly in 2019 with a new year. But anyway, you can go and you can put the bill number down when session starts in January. You can look up bills and legislation, budgets, but over here you can see the code of laws. You can click there. You can get into license law. This is the license law that created the need for 314. So you can see here it's highlighted. It's an I-5. So we'll read that here. If an offer is rejected without counter, an offer rejection form promulgated by the commission, signed by the licensee, affirming presentation of the offer must, and I emphasize must, be provided to the offeror by the licensee, whether the agent of the buyer, the seller, or if acting as a transaction broker. So as you can see here, it doesn't say anything about the seller signing, right? So the Real Estate Commission basically said, yeah, our staff told SCR you could put that line on there for the seller to sign, but we designed the form and we don't go one step beyond what license law says. And license law says we're going to promulgate a form signed by the licensee affirming presentation of the offer. So that's what they did. And so there's no seller signature line. They told us, hey, we don't care what our staff told you, SCR, you need to remove that seller line. So we removed it, but there is nothing preventing you from getting an ink pen and creating a seller line, or if you know how to manipulate the documents, or your tech person knows how to manipulate the documents, there's nothing preventing you as a broker from putting a seller signature line and putting that into your forms library in zip forms or .loop or whatever vendor you like to use for your forms. And then have the seller sign and add it to your broker policy. Hey, anybody that works for me, I demand that you get the seller to sign the offer rejection form as well. And you can see here by these commas, we had that question about whether or not buyer reps had to send this. You can see how you could read this, where this could apply to buyer reps, back and forth negotiations. Luckily, the Real Estate Commission has opined that this Form 314 is only for the listing agent on that first offer. So they cut out a lot of work for you, made your life a little bit easier. This thing probably could have been drafted a little bit better. One thing to note, there is no timetable on here for this offer rejection form. So if you ever get written up and you've forgotten to give a 314 to somebody, write up a 314 and send it to them. There's nothing in this law that says when you have to send it. So if you get caught not sending that 314, go ahead and send one. At least you can say you complied with the letter of the law. But the idea is that you would, be reasonable and timely send the 314. All right, this is the Real Estate Commission website. That's where these forms are. And you can even get the license. I want to show this to you because you can see it tells you, you've probably seen this when you did renewals, but it's got contact information. But up here where the cursor is, licensee lookup, if you want to file complaints on licensees and brokers for not doing your job, you can actually click the licensee lookup. And you can then go to the real estate, because LLR does all these people: accountants, architects, chiropractors, contractors, fire people. You go down to Real Estate Commission, click there, hit select, and then you can type in a last name or office. Say you're not a robot, pull their record up. You can actually file a complaint online. You just click to file a complaint on an individual. So say you're a buyer rep and you never got a 314 from the listing agent, you could look them up and file a complaint on them. And listing agents, if you ever get called by LR, why don't you send a 314? Send that 314. And that's the where you type it in. And this is the LLR's website. Down here you can see, you can click on the forms. Down here you can actually click on here where it says, excuse me, South Carolina Disclosure Real Estate Brokerage Relationships Offer Rejection Form. That's the one we're using, so you just click that if you want to see it. Pulls the form up so you can see it's a government form. It's on the website. We've added it to screaltors.org. We've added it to Zip Forms. All right, that's form 314. Kind of let you know, this is kind of a new format for us where we just do like these one-page forms. Greenville attorney instructor Carol Simpson is going to do some videos for us. Hopefully do some one-page forms for us, and she'll go through the contract. We have SCR 310 contract webinars, and you kind of have to fast forward through about an hour and a half to get to the section of the contract you like or want to read about. Carol Simpson is going to break it down and have a video on each section, so you could just pull up a YouTube video on section 1, parties' names or what have you. Any questions on 3-4 you got, Jenny?
Yeah. We have a couple.
Got 2 coming up. Go ahead.
If the listing agent just sends an email rejecting the offers or calls, is that sufficient rather than using 314? Can the buyer agent send it to the listing agent?
Okay, so we got 2 questions. The first one is, hey, because a lot of times I'll get this in training, realtors would make great lawyers. They want to try to find loopholes in law, what have you. So I pulled this up. If any of you like Jim Croce, he's got a good song, Bad Leroy Brown. He's got one, Don't Mess Around with Jim. And it says, they say you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off an old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess with Jim. Don't mess with the Real Estate Commission. Send this 314. Do not rely on emails. Do not rely on texts. Do not rely on calls. You can make calls and emails and texts. Hey, your offer was rejected, but always send a 314. Always send it. Listing agents always send a 314 when you reject. If it's rejected, listing agents always send a form 314. If the offer is rejected, the listing agent always sends a 314. The listing agent can email the buyer rep. The listing agent can call the buyer rep. The listing agent can text the buyer rep their offer is rejected, but listing agents always follow up with a 314. Listing agents always send a 314. So listing agents always do something. Listing agents always present all offers to the seller. Listing agents always send back one of 3 things. Most likely, in most scenarios, you're sending back a counteroffer form, 506, 507, with a higher price and better terms, right? You're probably going to counteroffer buyer's offer. Or you might be soliciting multiple offers with form 312 we're going to talk about. Or you're sending this, 314, the offer was rejected. So listing agents always send a 314 whenever an offer is rejected. Now you can attach this to the email. You could take a picture of this and text this. You can take a picture of this and post on social media and direct message. You could attach this to your email, but you're always sending a 314. Listing agents, if the offer is rejected, always send a 314. Listing agents always send a 314 when the offer is rejected. All right, then the other question, do buyer agents send this to the listing agent? So I think we covered it, but we'll cover it again. In the license law, you could read license law to say that buyer reps are supposed to send this. That's certainly a way you can interpret the grammar in the license law, but the Real Estate Commission has made everybody's life a lot easier. They've said, we're going to opine on what the legislators meant when they wrote the law. We believe, the commissioners on the Real Estate Commission, believe that the form 314 is only sent from the listing agent to the buyer rep. So buyer reps, you never have to worry about sending an offer rejection form. So listing agents always are sending a 314. Even if you're sending a 312 multiple offer form, send the 314. Even listing agents, if you're emailing, attach a 314. Listing agents, if you're calling, make sure you follow up with a fax or email or zip forms or courier 314 or US mail a 314. If you're texting, you might want to take a picture of this and put it in your direct messaging. But you're always sending a 314. If you ever forget, the law doesn't say when you have to send this. Obviously, the spirit of the law is you're going to reasonably and timely send this. But listing agents, if you ever forget, somebody calls you out on it, just go ahead and send the 314. The license law says you're going to send a 314. It doesn't say what time in the transaction you're going to send the 314. So if you forget, you're ever called out on it, go ahead and send the 314 so at least you can argue you're in compliance with the law. That cover all those? One more?
Back to what you were just talking about, they wanted to know if they need to send a 314 posthumously to former rejections that they didn't send it to, and if so, how far back? And is that mandatory as of today or in the future?
That's a good question. So the question was, hey, Byron, I'm just watching your webinar today. I didn't realize the law changed almost 2 years ago. So the law changed January 1, 2017. So if you're a listing agent since 2017 and you've rejected any offer, your seller rejected any offers, yeah, I guess technically to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, you would, retro send all these 314s. That might create more problems than it solves. Technically, you should have a 314. So yeah, if you want to be absolutely cross the T's, dot the I's, you could go back. That might be a lot of work, but you could send the 314 and then you could argue you were technically in compliance. On the other hand, that might trigger the buyer rep to go, what am I getting this today for? And November 15th, I might just file a complaint with the real estate commission. And then the real estate commission might, second guess how you handled it, Monday morning quarterback, say, hey, the spirit of the law was you're going to send this form timely and reasonable manner, not November 15th, 2018, for a deal back in January of 2017. So use good judgment. That's what I would say on that. But you're supposed to. If you didn't, and you wait till you get a complaint filed and then send it, because sending it now might create more problems than it solves. But if you had something from a week or two ago that right off the top of your head, yeah, go ahead and send it, I would say. That got them on, Jenny? All right, and moving on, we'll go into Form 312, which is multiple offers. So this is the Code of Ethics. It's at ner.realtor, Part 4, Appendix 9, presenting and negotiating multiple offers. We're in a fairly hot market now, a seller's market, low inventory for a variety of reasons. So you're probably seeing multiple offers. So multiple offers, you can go back and read this. It's got the link here, or you can just Google, multiple offers, NAR, and you'll get this and many, many more things to read, or you can go to our legal FAQs and read about multiple offers. The bottom line with multiple offers is that the seller calls the shots on multiple offers, because the seller's got to make a decision. So you get multiple offers. There's various ways to handle it. The seller could sign one offer right now and have a deal, right? So they got one in the hand, or kind of bird in the hand, two in the bush. The seller could say, hey, I think, listing agent, I want you to send a 314 and a 312 to all these buyers that submitted multiple offers, and ask them to come back, say Friday at noon, with their highest and best terms offers. And I might get better terms and better price, which is, for residential resales in a hot market, that's probably a good strategy for the seller, but it's not a guarantee strategy, because buyers might buy something else. So it's a bird in the hand, two in the bush. So seller could decide, hey, I've got multiple offers. I'm going to counteroffer one. Always just counteroffer one, never counteroffer more than one. Or the seller might say, I'm going to accept one. I want to get bird in the hand, get somebody locked into contract and move to closing. Or you could talk to them and say, hey, we've got this multiple offer policy and form. It's a little bit risky, not too risky in a hot market, but you basically reject all the offers, all the multiple offers, and say, come back at a future time and date and location with your highest and best offer. So say it was happening today, the seller might say, I would rather try to get better terms. I think there's a hot market. I think I could get a better price. Maybe some of these buyers are going to go buy something else, but I'm going to forego counter offering one of the offers or accepting one of the offers. Let's send them all a 314 offer rejection form. I'm rejecting them all today. and send them a 312 that we're going to talk about, the multiple offer form, solicitation, new offers. And we'll give a deadline, Monday at noon, Friday at noon, whatever time and date you decide, Saturday at 5 p.m. Bring your highest and best. So we're going to, and that's what this basically, it's boiling all this writing down. It basically says, hey, listing agents under Article 1 of the Code of Ethics, you got a duty to look out for the best interest of your clients. So sellers always get to make the decision how multiple offers are handled, not the listing agent. So never take it upon yourself. You can talk to the sellers, but let the sellers make the decision. Does the seller want to accept one, lock somebody into a deal? Does the seller want to counteroffer one of these buyers? Or, hey, seller, it's a hot market. We could go back with highest and best and try to get a highest price for you and better terms. And seller might say, hey, I like that idea. I know that some buyers or all the buyers might walk away, bird in the hand, two in the bush. I'm willing to take that gamble in the chance of making more money on the sale of my house with better terms as well. And once he does that, you got an easy job. So remember, listing agents always submit all offers. So you've done that. You submitted all these multiple offers to the seller. And then you've got to do three things, right? Seller's going to counteroffer. Nope, they're not going to do that for multiple offers. Seller's going to accept. Nope, they're not going to do that for multiple offers. Seller's going to reject them all and send a 314 to everybody and send a 3112 solicitation to solicit the highest and best terms from buyers with a deadline. All right, so this is the rejection of offer, a counteroffer, solicitation of new offer. So this form, it's from 2012. It's fairly old form. It predates the offer rejection form because there was no offer rejection form for many years in South Carolina. And Candace Pratt, she's now the chair of the Real Estate Commission, works out of Somerville. She actually suggested this form and kind of helped us develop it. This is before the law changed. This is part of 2017. It's been several years now. So this was the form for years and years and years. You've probably seen this. And a lot of people confuse this with 314, rejection of offer. In my opinion, this complies with the spirit of the law because obviously the buyers, if they get this form 312, they know that their offer was submitted to the seller and the seller rejected it and asked for highest and best terms. So in my opinion, this complies with the spirit of the law. However, the Real Estate Commission decides if you comply with the letter of the law. So always send the 314 and the 312. So that's why this webinar covers both, because they should go hand in hand. You should never just use a 312 by itself. This form, you should always use this form and the offer rejection form so that you comply with both the spirit of the license law and the letter of the license law. So the spirit of the license law, remember the problem we talked about at the beginning, buyer reps and buyers didn't believe their offers were getting submitted to the sellers. So that was the reason for the license law change. That was the reason NAR recently adopted the ethics change. That was the reason that NAR recently adopted the MLS change, all to ensure that the sellers are seeing these offers. So the letter law says, you shall use a 314 offer rejection form when the seller rejects the offer. So always use a 314 with a 312. 312, 314, they should go hand in hand. So this is the form. This is the older form. This is the one where you're rejecting the offer and you're soliciting new offers. So this is not a counter offer. This is why under the letter of the law, this does not comply with the letter of the law. This is not a counter offer to the buyers. This is a rejection of all buyers and a solicitation of new offers from the buyers. So the name of it, rejection of offer or counter offer, solicitation of new offers. So number one, seller rejects buyer's offer or counter offer. Number two, buyers rejected, all buyers or these named buyers. So I would say most times in the cookie cutter residential resale multiple offers, you're probably going to check the first box, all buyers, but these forms are very flexible. If you just wanted to reject certain ones, you can put that in there. And that was actually very useful before the 314. So say the seller's accepting one of the offers in a multiple offer scenario up front, or they're counter offering one offer. You're not rejecting all buyers, you're rejecting, say there was 3 multiple offers, the seller's accepting or counter offering buyer A, and then rejecting buyers B and C. You could write buyers B and C in here. Address of the subject property for rejected offer. This is mainly so you know what deal this pertains to. So you would type in the address. Number 4 is where you're setting up the highest and best way. So it says, seller invites buyer to submit a new offer containing new terms. So this is not a counteroffer. This is a solicitation of new offers from the buyers. Then it says, seller appreciates potential buyer's interest in purchasing the property. It says, seller does not accept or rejects the buyer's offer or counteroffer. Then it says, seller is not making an offer or counteroffer to the buyer. That's important because you don't want the buyer to be able to accept. If the seller sends a counteroffer and the buyer accepts, you're in a contract. And that's not what the seller is trying to do here. The seller is saying, look, I reject everybody. There is no deal yet. You guys bring me your highest and best terms by Friday at noon, Saturday at 4 p.m. to the listing broker's office, or the Holiday Inn Conference Center downtown, wherever the location is. Instead, seller invites buyers to submit a new offer to the seller. Seller suggests the buyer's offer be the highest and best terms offer, including new terms that equal or exceed these suggestions. So I don't think a lot of, when I give these classes, a lot of realtors say, I'll never fill anything here. Because, there is an element of playing poker to highest and best. You keep your cards close to your vest. If the seller were to say here, all new offers should exceed, $400,000, for example, then you might have a buyer that puts $400,000 in one. So some sellers say, hey, I'm going to keep my cards close to the vest. I'm not going to give them any hints. They're all playing in the blind. They're all playing against each other. All these buyers know there's other buyers. And you wouldn't want to make a fake one of these up. So there has to actually be, an idea that multiple buyers are involved. If you just whole cloth say that there's multiple buyers and that's a lie, that's a potential ethics violation and a license law violation. So never lie to anybody. You're going to get in trouble for that. Because Article 1 says you're going to be honest to everybody. And you don't have to answer questions, but you can't give false answers. So keep that in mind. You basically plead the fifth. If somebody asks you a question that you don't want to answer, hey, that's a great question. Let me write it down and give it to the seller, and we might get back to you. That would be a way to handle that without lying and not answering something that you don't want to answer. The other thing that comes up a lot of times, the thing to keep in mind on the buyer side, a lot of buyers and buyer reps for regular, just cookie cutter residential resale transactions believe their offers are confidential. That's not true. There's actually a part of the code of ethics where buyer reps have to tell their buyers, hey, look, these sellers are not under the code of ethics. These sellers could take your offer and post it on Facebook if they wanted to. So use your highest and best terms. This is your one best shot. If you really want this property, this is your highest, and use your highest and best terms to try to get that property. When I was researching for this, I actually saw a thing where it's talking about buyers submitting multiple offers. So a buyer might use due diligence and submit, 3 offers to 3 sellers and say, hey, sellers, I've got 3 offers out there to 3 sellers, and under due diligence, and first one to get back to me, I might accept your offer and buy your house. Otherwise, I might buy something else. So these multiple offers can cut both ways, I guess, is the bottom line. But anyway, I think sellers could give some sort of guidance. Hey, don't ask for a lot. Don't ask for more than $5,000 of repairs, or offers should exceed $500,000, or whatever kind of suggestions. That's what these lines are for. Number 5, other buyers, competing potential buyers may make offers at any time. Sellers may distribute offer information. So this is kind of giving buyers a heads up. Look, I'm telling you buyers to come back Friday at noon, but buyers, just like sellers, are unpredictable and uncontrollable. They're not under any kind of laws or guidelines. So you might have a buyer that makes an offer at 10 a.m. on Friday or an hour from now. Just a heads up. My intention as a seller is to wait until the deadline and get all you guys to submit your highest and best and then choose from that. And oh, by the way, sellers may distribute offer information. This offer also protects the buyer rep, because there's a code of ethics that say you have to give buyers a heads up this may happen. So this form actually gives that heads up to the buyers. Number 6, deadline for submitting a new offer. The seller invites any potential buyers to deliver their written highest and best. Remember, you got to put everything in writing, highest and best terms at the buyer's convenience. That's probably not checked very often, but these forms are designed to be flexible, so you could check that. But more likely, you're checking this box. the second box. To location, at or before time and date. So I might say, hey, I'm Byron King, listing agent. My seller has rejected all you guys. You all got the 314. This is the 312 follow-up that goes hand in hand with that 314 offer rejection. Seller's rejected all of you and wants you to bring your highest and best terms to the SCR offices at 3780 Fernandina Road at or before 12 p.m. On November 16th. And the idea is that all the buyers, the buyer reps would go talk. Hey, I really want that house. It's my dream house. I'm willing to pay more than list price for it. And so you put your highest and best terms, usually price and repairs, quick to close, all cash. Those are, going to get the seller's attention. Be careful about using quote unquote love letters. I love the house because it's perfect for my family or something like that. There are some fair housing implications potentially with that. So in here it kind of dissuades buyer reps from using these quote unquote love letters from the buyers to the sellers. And then it says seller intends to review all offers received at the stated deadline. That's what the seller intends to do, but sellers are unpredictable. They're not under ethics or license law. They might do something unanticipated at this point. But the intent is to wait until, in our example, Friday at noon. Because potential buyers may rescind their offers or counteroffers prior to acceptance, and buyers are not even required to submit a new offer, seller reserves the right to make an offer, to accept, reject any counteroffer, or any acceptable offer or counteroffer from any potential buyer at any time. This is kind of a protection for realtors, because we talked about sellers and buyers are generally not under any rules or morals or license law or ethics, and they might do stuff that's unpredictable. The seller intends to wait until Friday at noon, get all the highest and best, look at them, accept one, counteroffer one, reject them all at that time, and give another 314. But this also warns the seller, hey, buyers might not come back. They might go buy something else. So the seller's always got the right to make a deal at any time. It could happen. So that's in there to kind of protect realtors, to keep a client from our customer saying, hey, why didn't you warn me this could happen? You say, actually, I did warn you. It's in Form 312. Multiple offers, Section 7. At time of signing, the seller anticipates. These are check boxes. Either they anticipate or they do not anticipate, or they make no representation as the possibility of competing buyers delivering their highest and best offers by the deadline. So the seller is probably anticipating getting highest and best. So in general, you're probably checking that first box. Seller desires buyers to have a level playing field to fairly compete at their highest and best offering terms. And so seller warns buyers not use so-called quote unquote escalator clauses, but encourages presenting only the buyer's highest and best offering terms. Escalator clauses are, you've probably seen them. So say you put, and it's a buyer strategy to try to buy the house below their highest and best terms. So in our example, say the seller said, hey, all offers have to exceed $400,000. The buyer says, oh my gosh, that's my dream house. I would go up to $450,000 for that house, but I'm gonna try this escalator clause trick. I'm gonna say, hey, I'm offering, $400,000 for the house, plus $1,000 above the next highest offer, up to $450,000. So the buyer would really pay $450,000 for this house, but they're trying this escalator clause to try and get it for less than $450,000, right? And remember we talked about the advantage of kind of poker, keeping cards close to the vest. None of the other buyers probably know what the other buyers are going to offer. So the intent of the seller is to get the buyers to go to their absolute highest and best terms. So the intent of the seller is that buyer would put an offer in at $450,000. The problem with these escalator clauses is if all buyers use them, then all the buyers' offers ratchet up to their maximum level anyway, so you might as well do it anyway. The other problem this creates is price is a material term to a contract. So you don't have a price in your contract. You basically have said, I'm paying $400,000 plus $1,000 over the next highest offer. So I've tried to draft language that would cover all kinds of scenarios. It's very cumbersome. You can't write it in a short thing that covers all of the issues. And then you would have the seller signing a document that doesn't have a price term in it. So arguably you would not have a contract. That could let the buyer walk, that could let the seller walk. It's just not a good idea. So try to avoid escalator clauses at all costs. The other thing that comes up with escalator clauses, when I tried to draft it, you had to account for, the seller getting their neighbor or their brother-in-law to submit an offer to ratchet it up to 450 anyway. You got to put in language of a bona fide offer, and it just becomes really cumbersome. It took me about a page, and it was really complex. And still, you still have the problem of not having a price term in the contract. So please, the seller has said don't use escalator clauses. So for buyer reps, Article 1 says you're going to act in the best interest of your buyer. So when the seller warns you not to use an escalator clause, to just go against the seller's wishes and tell your buyer to put an escalator clause, you're arguably putting yourself in front of a lawsuit or an ethics complaint or a license law complaint. Sellers warned you not to use an escalator clause, and you tell your buyer to do it anyway, and they don't get the house. The buyer gets mad at the buyer rep, sues buyer rep for that advice, files ethics against the buyer rep for giving that advice to use an escalator clause, files license law complaints against the buyer rep for using that, telling them to use the escalator clause. It just could create some problems. So the seller said don't use escalator clauses. So if you're trying to be on the good side of the seller and get the deal, don't use escalator clauses. And then all our forms typically have this about, hey, Article 13 of the Code of Ethics and practice of law in South Carolina, you're saying, hey, buyers are solely responsible for obtaining legal advice during the contract negotiations and transaction. Real estate licensees recommend obtaining legal counsel. So Article 13 of the Code of Ethics says you're always going to recommend obtaining legal counsel when so required. Anytime you fill a legal document, they need to get legal advice, so you have to give them that heads up. Obviously, the buyer or the seller could ignore that advice at their own risk and peril, but it does get the realtor off the hook. And then the brokerage could sign it, the sellers could sign it and send this. So if you send this, say you got multiple offers, you're rejecting everybody, you send 312, you're complying with the spirit of license law from 2017 till now. You're letting the buyer know that the seller saw the offer most likely, but this form does not comply with the letter of license law. So always send a 314 with 312. And then what I would do is on Friday at noon, say the seller accepts from buyer A, then you would send another round of 314s to buyer B and buyer C. All right, and this is the Real Estate Commission. There's Commission Chair Candace Pratt. She was the one who helped us design 312. And a lot of realtors are serving on the Real Estate Commission. You can read those and contact those if you have any questions or comments about their form or the license law. And then there's the license law for form that created 314 if an offer is rejected without counter, an offer rejection form promulgated by the commission, signed by the licensee, affirming the presentation of the offer must be provided to the offeror by the licensee, where the agent of the buyer, the seller, or if acting as the transaction broker. So this is basically for the listing agents. Listing agents always do something. Listing agents always present all offers to the seller. Listing agents then respond in 3 ways back to the buyer. The listing agent never does nothing. So you're always responding back to the buyer, most likely with a counteroffer form with a higher price or better terms, or the offer rejection form, the 314, or multiple offers, the 3112 and 314. Or if you're really lucky, and negotiations are really short, the seller says, hey, I'll take that deal, and they sign it. Then you're just sending back the contract and moving to closing. And we talked about LLR's website, got the offer rejection form, and in closing, there's the offer rejection form. Jenny, got any questions? She said we got some questions.
All right, the first round of questions that we have is pertaining to the seller disclosure and the distribution of the information on the multiple offers form. They want to know if they can disclose offer amounts, and if so, what information they're allowed to distribute, if they're allowed to distribute it to other agents, and if they are asked, do they have to disclose competing buyer information?
Okay, that was a good question. Here's the question, I'll repeat it. It's talking about seller disclosure distribution in a multiple offer scenario. So you've gotten, you're in a hot market, you're the listing agent, it's in MLS, it's Thursday, the 15th of November at 12:55 p.m. You've got 4, in our example, we use the same example. So we got 3 buyers, A, B, and C. And the seller, you've talked to the seller and you said, look, seller, bird in the hand, two in the bush. What do you want to do? Do you want to accept one, counter offer one? That's your bird in the hand. Two in the bush, we can go back, there's a multiple offer scenario. We go back to all three buyers and say, look, bring your highest and best. I suggest you give them till tomorrow, Friday, November 16th at noon. Bring it to the SCR office. We'll look at the highest and best. We'll either counteroffer one, accept one, or reject them all. And so the question, so how do you set? And the seller says, hey, I want to do that. I don't want to make a lot of money. Heck with one in the hand. I'm going for two in the bush. So you send the 314 because you're rejecting them all. You send the 312 to set up the highest and best. And then so the question is, you've got three offers, right? A, B, and C. And say, the seller says, okay, I said minimum offer 400. So let's say, A is offered 400, B is offered, 390, C is offered 380. So the seller's saying, look, bring it. I want it higher than 400 because they think they're going to get more than 400. Say it's listed at 400. So A, put in a list price. It's hot market, but the seller thinks, hey, I can get above list price. So the question is, what do we do about disclosing that the offer? So for buyer reps, you can always ask, hey, are any of those offers in-house, dual agency, designated agency? And here's why the buyer reps always want to ask that. Because the list brokerage, because they're getting both sides of the transaction, might reduce their commission, right? Because because they're getting both sides of the transaction, they could reduce their commission and still end up netting more than splitting it with a co-op brokerage. And that makes the seller's bottom line better, right? So you've got a little bit of a advantage as a listing agent. So buyer reps can ask, hey, are any of these in-house? And is there a variable rate commission for, basically getting both sides? Listing agents have to answer that. They would say, yeah, there's, buyer C is in-house, and yes, we're giving a 1% variable rate to the seller. So knowing that, the buyer reps would tell their buyers, hey, they got a little bit of advantage because the seller's netting more with that, discounted commission by a percentage. So you've got to go to your highest and best terms, your absolute highest and best, because this is our one best shot to get the house. If you don't get it, there's other houses, we can go buy something else if you want to. But if this is your dream house, it meets all your needs, and you really want this house, your best shot at this house is go highest and best. So the question was, hey, can I disclose to the other agents that, say A was at 400? So you always want listing agents always go back to the seller and say, look, there's a couple of ways we can go this. We can shop this offer around. Legally, we can do that. Ethically, we can do that. However, that might rub buyers the wrong way. There's some advantage to holding our cards close to our chest, because if they don't know what the other offers are, they might think, oh my gosh, somebody might have offered 420. I've got to go up to 430. So there's kind of two schools of thoughts on it. Can you shop the offer in a regular cookie cutter residential resale? Yes, because the seller could do it, right? Remember we talked about the seller might post the offers on Facebook. So because the seller can do it, the agents can do it. Whether or not that's a good idea or not, talk to the seller and let the seller make that decision. So can you do it? Should you do it? Sort of thing. Can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? We talked about there's a little bit of element of playing poker, keeping your cards close to your vest. Maybe if everybody's in the dark, they come back and offer 450 or 460 or a higher price. Whereas if they know, hey, A offered 400, I don't really have to go up that high. I can probably beat A at 410 or 420, where I would have gone up to 430. So different schools of thought, but make the seller make that decision after a consultation. Any more? All right, go ahead.
With SCR form 312 under item number 2, when certain buyers' offers are being rejected, are all rejected buyers to be named at the same time?
All right, so the question, let's see if we can get back to the form here. So they're asking in 2. I think in 2, most of the time you're, checking this box, right? Most of the time you're rejecting all buyers. So most likely 99 times out of 100, you're going to reject all buyers. So the question is saying, well, what if I'm rejecting B and C? Do I have to name them? Do I have to name them now? Technically you don't have to do anything, but if you are going to do this, which I think would be unusual, In this form, remember this form predates the 314, so this was really envisioning, hey, A, B, and C submit offers, sellers accepting A and rejecting B and C. So this was really designed for, before we had 314, this was the way you rejected offers and put it in writing and got the buyer agent off your back, and the buyer reps and the buyers felt that their offers were seen. So I would say the second one really is kind of a dinosaur. This kind of goes back to before the 314, where the seller was accepting A's offer or counteroffering A and was rejecting B and C. But it's on the form and you could use it. So I suppose if you wanted to name them, you could put, write the name of buyer B or buyer B and C or buyer C, however you want to do it. But call the hotline. Some of these are heavily fact dependent. It's always called the hotline for that sort of issue. After 314, this form, you have to use 314 to reject. So this form, before 314, you might not even fill out section 4 or section 6 or section 7, right? So this form was actually 2 forms in one. It was a rejection of offer form and a solicitation of new offers. So there were scenarios where multiple offers, the seller was going to accept one or counteroffer one and was rejecting the other 2. Now you got 314 to reject them, right? So you really don't even need to worry about this so much. So. But call the hotline if that comes up. Is there another one, Jim? Okay, go ahead.
Could you expand a bit on the fair housing implications on love letters?
All right, so the question is about fair housing with love letters. Love letters, that's kind of a slang term. What it is, you may have seen it, where it was kind of a trend around the United States for a buyer to write something, trying to pull the heartstrings of the seller, where maybe their highest and best price wasn't as good as other offers, but here, and I'm just making something up off the top of my head. My children love your backyard. This would be my dream house. They love the play set out there. This would be an ideal home for a family with children. And kind of tugging on the heartstrings of the sellers, like, oh my gosh, it's a sweet little family. Their kids are going to play on the playground. In the backyard. I would love to sell them the house. And say you're in a multiple offer scenario where buyer A is this person that sends the love letter, and buyers B and C are, B is a retired couple with no children, C is a single person that doesn't have any children, and they find out that the seller got that love letter and made a decision based on, familial status, and as a single or retiree without children, they felt discriminated against. And this is all kind of fringe, but some of these fair housing things get very fringe. A couple of years ago, we were at an NAR meeting where somebody had filed a fair housing complaint about a pool. So there was a swimming pool, had a sign that said, no horseplay, no yelling, no jumping, which makes sense, right? You don't want people at the pool falling down and getting hurt, slipping on the wet pavement, getting hurt. Somebody filed a fair housing complaint against the apartment complex saying, well, who horseplays and runs and yells at the pool? Well, it's kids. So you're discriminating against families with children, which is familial status protected class. So some of these things get very fringe. So I bring that up about the love letters. There is a risk, or you say, look, I love that your house is near the Baptist church. I'm a very devout Baptist Christian. And then, say buyer B is Jewish or buyer C is an atheist, and they file fair housing. So that's why I bring that up. Probably a fringe issue. But it is an issue just to keep in
mind. These are just a couple more questions about the form itself. They want to know if the location for number 6 could be email, if they could submit the offer via email rather than to the place directly. And they said where the brokerage is mentioned at the end for the signature, do you have to put the name of the real estate company or does the agent sign there?
Okay, so good question. So this is about the form itself. So here's the question about 6, deadline submitting a new offer, is asking about physical location versus electronic location. So deadline for submitting a new offer, the seller invites potential buyers to deliver their highest and best, they're written, remember always doing the writing, highest and best term offers at the buyer's company. Probably not going to check that. You're going to leave that blank because you're going to give them a time and deadline. Or to location. So the question was, hey, can we use zip forms or dot loop or fax? So this location, you could certainly write in there, SCR office 3780 Fernandina Road, or Byron at screaltors.org, or SCR's fax number 798-803-798-6650. So you can certainly put emails or locations in there, because the location could be physical location or electronic location. That's a good question, because I did just use the physical location. A lot of people are out of state and it's not convenient to physically show up. So certainly you could put location, brokerage office or brokerage email or brokerage fax, just somewhere where you let them know. And certainly you're going to be on the phone. You should always, a lot of times on the hotline I get calls where realtors are not talking to each other anymore on the telephone or in person. They're just relying on text or emails. Always be following up these forms with conversations with these buyer reps. Hey, look, seller's doing a multiple offer. Would you guys like to come into the office and bring your offers in person, or are you going to email them, or are you going to fax them to us? All those are good with us, or one of them's not good with us. We don't have a fax machine or what have you. So you could certainly handle the situation. And then the other one was down at the bottom where it says Brokerage Signature. Brokerage Signature, obviously, if you're a solo broker in charge, you're going to be signing there. If you're a broker in charge of 200 agents, you're probably not looking at every piece of paper coming out of your brokerage. You're probably going to authorize all or trusted agents to sign for you. So I would say this blank down here for brokerage, you don't have to put the company name. That's going to be on the offer to purchase, right? 310 on page 8 has the fax number, the email, the company address, the broker in charge name, the agent's name, the license number for broker in charge, license number for agent, expiration of license for broker in charge, expiration for agent. So all that's going to be really covered, and we're trying to keep these forms on one page too. So for brevity's sake, probably going to have and these actually don't even have to be signatures, right? You could just type it in, Byron King, agent at SCR Realty or something like that, or I could just sign it, however you want to handle it. It's not a huge issue. The main issue with 312 is seller makes the call on it. Do they want to counteroffer one, accept one, or do multiple offers? On the buyer reps, and always send a 314 at both levels of the multiple offers. So today, when we sent out 312 today saying bring your highest and best offers tomorrow at noon, I'm sending out 3112, 314 to all three buyers. And then tomorrow, when my seller accepts buyer C, I'm sending a 314 to buyers A and buyers B. For buyer reps, the main thing on this form is the escalator clause. Please call the hotline if you're thinking about using an escalator clause. Make sure you get a lawyer to draft it. There is no escalator clause in South Carolina Association of Realtors standard forms. And I would, in my opinion, try to talk you out of using an escalator clause. The seller has asked for highest and best. Go against the seller's wishes. It's going to rub the seller the wrong way and not give your buyer a good shot at getting the house. And we talked about without the price term in the contract, then you got contractual problems. Buyers could walk away, sellers could walk away. And what if the seller just gets their brother-in-law to submit an offer to ratchet it up to the highest and best anyway? And if everybody uses these escalator clauses, everybody's going to use a lot of math. Nobody likes to do math. They would all ratchet up to their highest and best anyway. Is that all of them? All right, thanks to Jenny for doing another good job with the webinar. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for the people that volunteered to serve on the committees. Congratulations to the 2019 leadership team, President Drew Street, committee members. If you sign up for committees, keep a lookout for your emails coming from Drew Street inviting you to serve in 2019 on your committees. Thank you.